How can AI help teachers meet the promise of UDL? This question is more than just a prompt for the following conversation. It's a gateway to reimagining the future of education. As we navigate the complexities and demands of today's classrooms, the potential of artificial intelligence to personalize learning and make education more inclusive cannot be overstated. That's exactly why we began the Edtalk webinars like this one, to create a vibrant forum where educators like you come together to share resources, support one another, and tackle the challenges of the day. Working in education has never been more complex, nor as difficult as it is right now. But that doesn't mean you need to face it alone. Through this webinar and others like it, we're building a network of support, a community eager to learn from each other, and one that is committed to making school work for every student in the classroom. Let's dive in, share, learn, and grow together. Before we get started, I want to provide a bit of a disclaimer. Tonight's topic combines two of my most passionate topics right now, AI and personalized learning. For those here tonight who have gone through our EDI training, you'll recall accessibility and inclusion is theme 4 of the EDI framework. In this theme, we work with teachers on recognizing learner variability and proactively planning to address the barriers that exist in all classrooms. Those barriers can include students who may not have the background knowledge to fully understand the complexities of a subject area, or who may not be able to comprehend a lesson if only presented in one way. Or maybe students who might struggle to express what they really know if only given a single way to do it. I think most teachers today recognize these barriers, but because it's so difficult to plan for and address them, sometimes teachers become paralyzed to the difficult job of teaching a class with students with so many diverse needs. And if that wasn't hard enough, our classrooms are getting more diverse, not less. But with AI, I truly believe for the first time in my career, that true personalization is possible. So I'm really excited about tonight's topic because for the first time in a long time, I see the light at the end of the tunnel for so many teachers who have been asked to do something that I believe up until now has been virtually impossible. And that's to design and deliver instruction for 20 to 25 unique and diverse learners at the same time in the same classroom. For those joining us tonight for the first time, our Edtalk webinars are designed to be conversational. While some participants may share their screens to show a resource or provide context to what they are speaking about, the aim of these webinars is to pull from the collective wisdom of the group. So please don't hesitate to jump into the conversation, offer your perspective, and even change the focus if needed. The way we see it, you're giving up an hour or so of your evening to be here with us, so feel free to play as much of a role or as little as a role in the conversation as you like. And lastly, for those who are still listed as attendees, feel free to stay and listen, but if you'd like to be made a panelist so you can participate in the discussion, please let us know by posting that in the chat. So let's get started. When each of you registered, you were asked to share a particular challenge or area of interest you have regarding integrating AI into your school or classroom. In an effort to model true AI integration, I took those challenges and put them into ChatGPT to help synthesize and organize topics into these essential questions. Number 1, how can AI help teachers meet the promise of UDL? Number 2, how can we help students navigate the ethical and acceptable use of AI? And number 3, what can we do as educators to ensure student privacy and safety remain front and center in our schools? So that's tonight's outline. But again, feel free to add your own thoughts and perspectives to the conversation. Kate Bienikowski, last week you and I spoke about AI being a tool that can allow teachers to meet the promise of UDL. Can you share with the group here tonight some of your thoughts around how AI and UDL can help us move beyond the one-size-fits-all classroom?
Sure. Mike and I have been talking a lot about using AI for UDL. And I know that we're all educators in this room, but just thinking the scenario that Katie Novak, who's like a lead expert in UDL, shares about the difference between planning for a differentiated classroom versus planning for a UDL classroom, where when we're differentiating, she uses the analogy of a dinner party where you're making a unique dish for every guest, but you're designing that for every guest. You're deciding what dish you're making for your guests. whereas UDL is more about empowering the learners to design their own learning. So again, for that dinner party analogy, it would be like you presenting a buffet to all of your dinner guests and allowing them to choose the foods that would best fit their needs. When Mike and I were talking about this, we were thinking about things like using AI. We could use AI to be a text leveler at times if we wanted to. There's some great tools out there to do that. But there's also these opportunities where if we wanted to present our students with multiple means of representation in their content, that you could use AI to input a video and ask it to create a transcript to go along with the video. That would be really time consuming for a teacher to do, but I could do it in seconds. And then the reverse process too, that if you had a reading that you wanted to create a video to go along with the reading or create images to go along with the reading, again, that would be nearly impossible for a teacher to do on their own, but could be really powerful with the use of AI. And then I think Mike had some ideas for, I don't know if we have lots of ideas about how that could look, but if we wanted to just maybe think about representation for a minute, since there's 3 themes that go along with UDL, or 3 principles, I should say, maybe if we all just wanted to talk about the idea of using AI for multiple means of representation.
Kate, I'll jump in. And I think the video transcript example reminded me of something that I started using ChatGPT for, and that's to create alternative text behind images. I've always known it's best practice for individuals who have screen readers, right? Who have vision issues, who can't necessarily make out what the image is, to have some type of alternative text behind it so their screen readers can read it, right? But I never know what to write with an image, right? What constitutes alternative text to the level that it should? So what I found myself doing is uploading images just into ChatGPT and asking it, can you please write alternative text for this image? And within 5 seconds or so, it creates that alternative text for me. I copy, paste it behind the image, upload it to social media. That seemingly simple way to use AI is now making at least my blog posts, social media posts, images in Canva or Schoology more accessible for students who have those needs. That's just one example, right?
And Sam, I'll jump in too. I feel like a year ago, it was just ChatGPT. OpenAI comes out, it's ChatGPT. And that large language model that you type in and you're literally having a chat back and forth. And that was it. And now there's how many? I couldn't tell you how many, but my point is one specific that we used to talk about and use on the regular was, hi, your assistant AI, your AI assistant. ChatGPT can do that. So can Magic School. So can all these other tools. And the whole point of me bringing this up is like Magic School, for example, is what we've been using pretty consistent. And it gives you 60 different tools to help you. And when I say you, teachers, to help you lesson plan, to help you differentiate, to help you write assessments, to help you with maybe IEP goals, things of that nature. And it's not so much about copying and pasting. It's to help and support you with your thoughts and to help you with what you want to come out of it. And when we talk about what we're doing tonight, how we're diving into accessibility and inclusion, what a great way to give you some more ideas. You input and get output of a bunch of different ideas that can support you with students with how many different levels of learning and what needs that are there. So it's just amazing how it went from you putting into the chat one specific thing, and now I feel like it's even evolved a heck of a lot even more, and it's continuing into that trend. Yeah, it's just amazing. I think it's amazing. And it's just the way that you can use it and how we're teaching our students how to use it at the secondary level is extremely important too.
Mike, to add to that, something that I've been thinking about is I worked with some of our multilingual teachers last week about this topic, and we were talking about using some of the tools that our district supports. One in particular stands out, which is DIFIT, but to support either background knowledge that students might need in order to access content area topics. So if we have kids that are in particularly in a secondary level, or that are just ready to study maybe like a social studies topic that requires a little bit of extra background knowledge, AI can generate some summaries or some different text to support that, or even AI can generate some of the pictures and things that might be needed. Diffit also is so great because it will provide, when you put in a text, some key vocabulary that students may need to know. So some of those things, in order to aid in comprehension, I feel like the tools have a lot to offer when it comes to providing some of that context, helping us find like relevant information. Sometimes for students, maybe just putting in text and generating a summary can lift the level of their understanding of a text that they're studying. So those were some of the things that we talked about with our multilingual teachers.
And also, Meg, adding on to it, what vocabulary you want to take out and what you want to customize to make it fit your need and your levels.
I was literally just going to say something about vocabulary too, like especially in Diffit, where it gives you like that ability to pull out specific vocabulary words that you might need to engage with learners and maybe pre-teach and things like that.
And as far as I know, I feel like we're going all over here with the AI and the components, but we were talking earlier about need and wants, and what do you think secondary teachers might need for their students? And a colleague of mine, we were just talking about maybe specific prompts for input to support student learning. And that kind of goes into some of the other things like an executive functioning. Students need to be able to plan ahead. They need to meet their goals. What's a specific prompt that students can do with any one of their classes? Like, I have a paper due. It's due in mid-March. It's going to be on this. Can you help me with my planning? And that can support maybe what's due first, what's due second. It'll go back and forth with the chat piece, meaning that large language model of how many hours can you put into it? What's your extracurricular activities look like? It's trying to get information from the human to help support that plan and what that would look like. And there's just so many tools that you can use. And again, Sam, going back to what you said earlier, we were talking about ChatGPT. It's not just ChatGPT anymore. There's so many of these tools that can support learning.
Thank you for doing this. Not quite sure what my question is, so I'm just going to talk it out a little bit. We've been doing differentiation for years, and your understatement of we have 25 kids in front of us that they're all need an IEP. They all have different learning needs. And I have dabbled minimally with some of the AI. I've created a couple quizzes just to see what's out there, trying to do some differentiation. But the concern that I have is our feeder to the fire when we come to standardized tests. And that's what we're looking at in terms of placing kids or looking at, oh, how are they growing? What's their achievement like? And if we're always differentiating and these kids are only working at a third grade level on their AI, the things we pushed out to them that way, but I got to give them a fifth grade assessment. And that's always been a concern. So where can AI help us bridge that gap a little bit?
I love that you brought that up because it is a real thing. And when I was talking with Mike and Sam about tonight, we talked a little bit about the need to not always level every single thing for kids. Because if we constantly just give them a text at the level that they're currently reading at, they will never get to the next level. That using a tool like AI to create those level texts for students is a great use, but that we're also mindful of, okay, so if today we gave them their third grade level text, tomorrow could we, or not tomorrow necessarily, but soon, could we try a little bit more challenging text for them to see if we can keep leveling them up to that next level. But then also, and I know that you do this in your work because I have the experience of knowing you as a teacher, but the importance of the whole group read aloud or something like that, where they're also experiencing higher level texts in other ways in the classroom is another way to really scaffold that for learners.
No, I think, Kate, you're right. It's a balance, right? Lynn, you're providing those those options and accessibility, and you're modifying the curriculum because that's what the student needs at that particular time. And Kate said, students need on grade level text and they need that practice, but we want to be able to provide those accommodations for students so they work towards that grade level text. Without it, we know the result is the students are never going to be able to get to that level of understanding that we want them and need them to get to. That's why we provide those accommodations. Now, at some point, you as the teacher and your expertise and understanding of that child, you're going to provide them more challenging activities and resources and on grade level texts. Not necessarily to teach to the test, but because that's what's good for kids, right?
I don't disagree with giving kids levels that are challenging, but they need to be supported in that. You can't just give them, say, okay, you've been reading second grade level text. Here's a third grade level, have at it. You need to provide the supports in place. It's almost not about the level of the text. It's how can you support them through comprehension strategies or phonics strategies, which are a different situation, but how can you support them? You can't just say Chat GPT or Magic Air or whatever it's called is going to give me a more difficult text. That's not going to help a kid. What's going to help the kid is how you can put those supports in place for them to attack that higher level text.
You use the AI to speed up the process of changing the text level. So right now, it's impossible for you to have, like I said, 20 to 25 different learners in your classroom who most of them may be at a particular grade level in terms of their understanding of a reading, for example. You're going to have students who are beyond that and students who are below that. So what do you do now without AI? You work your hardest, you try to find similar but maybe different text to provide those students with the supports, obviously. But what we're making the case for is AI can quickly take that same reading assignment, reading passage, and create a different reading level without changing the content.
And Lynn, going back to your question about how can AI do that, you asked the question to this panelist here. One of the things is maybe typing that same, and please don't take this the wrong way, the long question or long prompt that you might have, that might spit out 25 options. And then going through that chat and going back and forth with it might say, you know what, this is a little too broad. I don't like number 2 and 4, but tell me more about number 6. And it might give you more information about it that would spark your curiosity and just a different strategy that can support your students.
There's also a new tool that we're learning a little bit about called Ludia. It is specifically for universal design for learning. That's specifically what Ludia is designed for. So you can, I was playing around with it this afternoon. You can put in the demographics of your class when it comes to the types of learners that you have. I have 3 students that are reading at this grade level, or reading, if you just even say below grade level. I have 2 English language learners. I have, when you put in some of the information about your class and the activity, the goals for your lesson, like the objectives for your lesson, and it will give you some barriers that each of those types of learners might face, and then also some scaffolds that you might use in order to help lift students over those barriers. It was a pretty incredible tool that you can keep having that conversation back and forth with. I was trying a 7th grade unit with the Outsiders content and a character's journey, and it gave me some really cool suggestions on ways to engage the learners in the content, although it would be very challenging for some of the learners I had put in there. So that might be something to think about. Again, it would take time to learn it, and I understand all of that, but it does seem like a pretty promising AI tool that's coming down the pike.
I was thinking both back to what you asked, Lynn, and then Karen, your response too. I was just thinking about like our small groups in reading and the things that we might do to support readers to lift their level. We could use paired text. So if you have students who are reading on a second grade level, print out a passage in a second grade level, but then also level it up to a third grade and a text leveler, and see if we can compare and level them up to almost like a guided reading group to see, can they see the nuanced differences in the complexity of the sentences or the vocabulary, and almost lift them that way. I was also thinking about the writing piece too, is like, how do we create exemplars using some of our AI tools to either mimic what we might see with our students that could include mistakes, that could include things that would look like the things that they're turning in, and invite them to peer revise or use that to do some small group work to elevate the level, along with maybe an exemplar of what you would expect. And some of those things are taking the lift off of you, but probably already match some of the lessons that you're doing. But I think you could even put a passage in and say, I have a small group who need this targeted skill intervention. What kinds of questions can I ask, or what might I do with this passage or this piece to elevate that?
But as of today, all of the ninth graders in our district received a lesson about the ethical use of using AI. And we really talked about what AI is. We talked about the ethical use. We talked about the hallucinations, which is the output that the AI is spitting back that is 100% wrong, so that you need to be smarter than the bot. And 4 was really basically about prompting. And we used research from Ethan Malik. We also used a continuum based off of Matt Miller. And the continuum was really cool because it talked about what specific prompts or examples that are completely human powered versus bot powered. But there were 2 that were just 100% yes, that's 100% cheating. And then the other one was no, it's 100% human powered. But there were four other ones that there's wiggle room, and that's that gray area. That's that gray area about AI and the ethical use of using it. And one of the things that we really focused on and hammered on was how to use it in classes for specific ways. One would be like an idea generator, and one of the teachers at the class is using it in their modern European history. They're doing research projects, and how can they use AI to generate some ideas? And there's maybe a specific prompt that you can use for that and share it and show how that can work. Again, we talked briefly before about the executive functioning. Hey, I have this research paper due. It's due in a month. Can you help me with my planning? And then go back and forth with the bot. And the last one was more about a tutor or a study buddy. Hey, I'm studying about my ninth grade science quiz. Can you help me? It's about the 7 major biomes. And that the AI can produce questions for you to answer, and the student can go back and forth and use it as a quote unquote study buddy. So again, just different ways that we can use this. Oh, and then the last thing would be that conversation that if teachers want to know that you use this AI, how did you use it? Share the thread with me. So the teacher can see the input and the output from what the student put in, what the bot gave out, and was it human powered or bot powered? And those are the conversations that we're trying to have with our secondary students now, because they're ninth graders, but by the time they leave high school and they go to college, AI is not going away. It's only going to be probably even further from there 4 years from now. So it's just to hammer that home, get that into their heads, and just keep reinforcing that AI can be used as a tool, but it's not your 100% work. You're coming to school to learn. Those are kinds of things that we're constantly talking about as educators in our district, on a panel like this. And it's just how can we use it, and happy to share some of the ways that one of those lessons or 2 that we physically used with ninth grade students.
Love everything Mike just said. And I just was thinking too, back to something Karen said, we can use the AI for the creation maybe of the text that we might use with kids. but that when it comes down to the nitty gritty, that we need that lens of the teacher to really lift the kids to the next level. And that work that we do as educators, getting the kids into a text and showing them all the nuances of it. That's the work of a human. And we have to make sure that we keep it there.
And Kate, you just made me think of something too, the providing multiple means of action and expression, part of UDL, right? Like, how can students share what they learned? And one of the ways that AI was used, a high school student has a really hard time presenting or sharing their learning and speaking in front of large groups. So the teacher allowed the student to either record or do something like a screencast or something like that. But instead, we found, I forget the name of the tool, I'm drawing a blank, but it was through Canva. And the student did research and information about Henry VIII. It was a video of Henry VIII.
Talking head.
Yeah, the talking head and the speaking of what the student put into the bot to share out that learning. Talk about a means of action and expression. Pretty cool.
Yeah, and thinking about that as from the teacher lens, I've helped teachers create some really cool choice boards, much for the reason, like Mike just said, like giving kids, do you want to do a podcast? Do you want to create a video? Like, how do you want to show your learning? And one of the biggest barriers to teachers doing projects like that at the secondary level sometimes is, how do I grade it? What does that look like when every kid hands me something different? That feels hard. But that would be a good use of AI in terms of creating what a rubric could look like for that, because that's something really hard and big to wrap your head around, or like creating exemplars of different types of projects that kids might do. That could be a cool use of AI from the teacher lens and a big time saver there when we're thinking about those giving kids multiple means of expression. I love that.
Ask a question just from the ethical end, from the educator end of things. Like I said, I dabbled a little bit. I was very proud. I made a science quiz with Magic School, and I also did a rubric for some project that I was doing. And I had to be really careful because there were mistakes or had to eliminate. So the human being is still needed. But from the ethical standpoint, and I wrote on the quiz created using Magic School AI. Is that something that we should be doing? We're asking the kids, we want the kids to be ethical, but should we also let them know, hey, I created this using this material? Or we don't say, I made this curriculum using this book, but where are we with that?
Lynn, that's such a great question. And I'm not sure if I was talking to Lori earlier about this or not, but when I'm visiting with teachers and we're working on AI, or whether it's in Garnet Valley or outside at a conference, I'm starting to notice teachers are a little bit hesitant in being transparent with students that they're using the AI. And it's counterproductive in my eyes, right? At least the teachers I work with, the Garnet Valley School District teachers we work with, we're promoting the AI, right? It's never going to replace a teacher. We get the human component of it. I think we all agree with that. But a teacher using AI, to me, is a better teacher than not using AI, right? That there's so many things we talked about tonight and other ed talks. I think we model the use. To your question, to your point, if I'm going to be a teacher and I'm going to generate discussion prompts or essay questions, I want to be able to say to students, I leaned on AI for this. I inputted the prompt to get to this. I edited it because I didn't like the wording. It wasn't in my voice, etc. But I partnered with AI to help me generate a quiz question or a discussion prompt. But I'm finding teachers are a little embarrassed about that. And I know over time that'll probably go away. I wish that time were sooner than not, because I don't see it as cheating at the teacher level or taking a shortcut or being lazy or some of the other things I've heard. I think it's good modeling. I think it's best practice. I think it's modeling use and appropriate use and citing resources and things like that. That's my opinion and the opinion we have at Garnet Valley. I'm not sure that every district necessarily shares that, but that's something that I'm an advocate for, is to be open and transparent with students when we use it. I'm curious, Jamie and Alan, have you experienced similar at Nazareth?
I think where we're at the secondary level, I can't really speak to our K-6 programming, but really just trying to help our teachers get a feel for what's out there. There's so much out there. There's so many tools. And I've been to so many conferences and workshops about AI, and I've brought a team of people to some of them, and we leave there completely overwhelmed with the number of tools that are out there. And maybe it's not every day, but certainly weekly, monthly, there's more, right? There's more. And I think we're just struggling with trying to get our teachers to feel comfortable with what these tools are, how can they use them in their classroom. Once they start using them, things are starting to change, and it's okay, that's outdated now, that's old news. All right, what's the newest version out there? Honestly, we haven't really come out with any sort of position or directive, if you will, that you must or you must not use AI. We've been, at least my messaging has been, hey, try it, experiment with it, see how it goes. Trial and error, to me, is always how we learn best. Over the next month or so, and I just put something out to our staff today, that we're going to start to have some conversations about, okay, what have you been using? How's it been going? Where are we with using AI in the classroom? Anything, some people are embracing it and others are doing whatever they can to pretend it's not there. But I think we've all realized that, and I think somebody may have said it, it's not going anywhere. And I lived through, and we all lived through, trying to fight the cell phones and we lost, right? We lost that battle. And so now I think we have to embrace this and say, hey, look, let's teach our kids how to use it responsibly. Let's help them understand the time and place to use AI. But right now, we're really trying to get our staff to feel at least some level of comfort, and that it's okay for them to experiment with it. And I know some have been, and there's others who have just been very reticent to do so. And I get it, it's so new. And if you're not educating yourself, if you're not trying things out on your own, it's hard to find the time, right, through the limited professional development sessions we have, to really get people up to speed and to feel comfortable. But I would agree that if you are using AI for something as a teacher, definitely try to cite it or mention it or make sure kids know, because I agree, I think we want to model that good behavior. But so we're still in that experimentation phase. But I do think as we progress through this spring and into the summer, my hope is that as a secondary program, we can come up with some parameters for next year. Definitely, okay, here's what we hope to see you doing, here's things we want you to stay away from, and so forth. So we've taken this year to say, all right, let's just see how many people we can get to put their toes in the water. Some are up to their knees, and others are still like, just maybe put a little toe in there. It's been an interesting journey so far.
The hardest part of my job is meeting the needs of our teachers who are going 1,000 miles an hour and finding these newest tools to do great things. And at the same time, supporting teachers who aren't there yet, who aren't ready yet, who don't have the background or passion or interest right now for these tools and others. I find myself being torn like you. For that reason, I'll just share our perspective here. Doesn't make it right or wrong, I don't think, is I wanted to get ahead of the AI because I had such a bad experience with iPad apps when we had iPads in all the classrooms back before we went to a different setup. We had thousands of apps in our school district, thousands. Half of them did the same thing. Half of them were never updated. So I just wanted to get ahead of it. And like you, I talked to a few of our early adopters, and they were using Magic School and Diffit, and I met with both of those companies. We ended up partnering with them early because I wanted to provide a little bit of guidance with, hey, I know there's a million different AI tools out there. These are the two that we have vetted and that we are supporting and training teachers on. That so far has worked well for us. The problem will come when there's the next AI tool that's better, and Diffit and Magic School may not meet our needs anymore. So then what do? Do we just shift right away? That'll be impossible, I think.
If we could, I don't know what AI looks like in K1, But if we could break things down at the elementary school, like K1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I know our buildings are not set up that way, but what a third grader can do on AI and what a fifth grader can do on AI are two extremely different things. And as a teacher of third grade, because it's new, I don't want advanced stuff. Like I don't want fifth grade stuff. I want to know what second or third graders can do. Because when they come in the beginning of the year, they're basically second graders. When we go past the new year, they start to become third graders and get older and older. But I think if we could, I would love to have some in-service on it, but I would love it to be extremely directed to what I can use in my classroom, if that makes any sense.
Monday, there's a lunch.
I know lunch. I have it. I got
But
it.
it's really just to explore the tool, but very specific to our school so that you can come in and sit with a coach, or we'll just log you into that. And that would not be for student use, because I don't know that third graders are going to be using some of the tools that we would be using in that same way. However, sitting with your colleagues and learning one little thing at a time might then be a way to step into it.
Do you think
Now, you're right, Karen. In this particular topic, we absolutely need to differentiate based on grade level, age of students, because there are some legal ramifications around that, right? So elementary students should not be using these tools. These are 100% teacher-led interactions with the tool. So you can sleep at night. Myself, the coaches met today, and we are starting to put together a AI literacy scope and sequence for K-5. Some of the lesson plans that we can fold into some of our digital citizenship lessons, but then use that as a foundation for the work we do at Garnet Valley. Get teachers like yourself, get teachers like Lynn, get some other folks that participate on the curriculum side to then take this and make it.
I would love in that situation though, for third grade teachers to have some flexibility to go back to second and go to 3 to 5, because it is that, because we split our grades up and because states test third grade, but K to 3 is still primary. So you're dealing with totally, the state may think they have great expectations for what they can do in third grade, but that hasn't changed what they can do developmentally.
Yeah, but I do want to, for some of our secondary folks here, one of the things that our coaches do really successfully, in my opinion, is when we are working with secondary students on using AI, we do a number of different things. But one of the things that Christine, one of our coaches, and I presented on at Petency was using a framework on how to have students prompt the AI in a way that's not a one-time and copy paste. So we came up with just the guide framework, right? And when students are using the AI for themselves, and again, this is secondary level, we want students to define the goal. What do they want AI to help them with? In that same prompt, we want students to provide some background information for the AI so the AI understands its task, and to clarify the context. Right? I'm an 11th grade honors social studies student, for example, right? Then we want to instruct it on what we want it to do. Do we want to summarize text? Do we want to provide an outline? But the most important part of this is the last part. It's the evaluate. And so many of the prompts that I have seen out there, but some of the prompts I've seen skip this last step. And that is just copy paste and reevaluate things. Like, we want to proactively work with students so they know that evaluation is a part of the process of interacting with the AI. The way Christine, one of our instructional design coaches, she frames this with teachers and students that she works with, and I know some of our other coaches do the same thing, is she makes kids do an interaction of 5 times with the AI before they're even done. They'll put the guide prompt in, they'll get the result, they'll read it, they'll evaluate it, they'll respond to it, they'll get the result, they'll read it, evaluate it, right? So it's an ongoing conversation. We always tell our teachers, at least ones I work with, It's called ChatGPT for a reason. It's a chat. It's not Google where you put something into it and expect one thing to come out and you're done. We want to be able to interact with this. Since I referenced the work we do with our students, the one thing we do, and maybe you guys do this at Nazareth as well, we found successful, is when students are using AI, they have to share the link with their teacher so the teacher knows how and where AI was used and whether it was used appropriately or not. We've found success in this. I know there's other different frameworks and things like that, but this one was easy for our kids to understand, and our teachers at the secondary level seem to like it.
Guide as a framework for an elementary teacher like myself to create a lesson. Like I would go through all those same exact steps.
But on a personal level, last year, I was going through, someone in my family was going through a medical situation that was completely brand new to me, and all the above, emotional. And how I ended up using ChatGPT was essentially every day I would have notes of what the doctor said, what things were going on. And it got even to a point of legal situations being in there. And I was able to deal with this problem that was completely unknown and new to me, and quite far out of my reach of knowledge. And I was able to ask questions. There's no space for a dumb question. I was able to ask questions, synthesize my notes, and it really gave me a superpower to, I could give a whole set of days notes of everything that went on, and I can ask it to take out the objectiveness in it, so I can relay that to my siblings who had to deal with things. Sorry about my daughter.
No, awesome.
It was a moment where I felt superpowered, and when I knew that I was not up to par with the knowledge that I was supposed to be interacting with, and I knew that I had a goal to get somewhere. So with that, I had this theory that it's been what I believe AI can do is it'll be the death of the dumb question for teachers, for students. There's so many times where that if you were just to be able to get an answer to that question, and sometimes you're afraid to raise your hand, teachers are afraid to speak up during PD. And I found that as a companion, a partnership where I was able to do things faster, more efficiently, more accurately. Even when I was applying for my latest job, I went through a whole mock simulation of job interviews. So by the time that I got down in that position, I had a whole chat conversational experience that I knew that I could really, I was confident. I do believe that, to your point, Sam, in the beginning, where I think the light is at the end of the tunnel, how you mentioned that, I think it brings down the barrier for every student of any kind to be able to interact with knowledge, whether it's far out of reach, they're able to bring it down to their context. And now just the challenge is essentially the whole spectrum of teachers that we're trying to overcome, the fear, the anxiety, and just at the speed of which everything's going is just, it's quite phenomenal in every aspect, but just exciting to be around people having these conversations. And I do feel it's a time of empowerment and a time of, to bring up the little ones in a world that's going to be completely brand new to them. So I'm excited to have a little bit of foresight for my kids.
So happy you were able to share that with us. I did speak with Emily the other day. For anybody who's not familiar with Emily, she works at Kingsway with Vince. You guys are doing amazing work over there. So keep it up. Love collaborating. Love the partnerships we have.
Awesome. No, yeah, thanks for having me. It's good to be a part of something like this. So I appreciate it.
I didn't really have anything specific to add because of the type of teacher who's starting to dip their toes in it. And I've used it in a few ways myself to play around with it. But I would like to say that this gave me some pretty good concrete ways that I can go about doing that. And go about going more than just toe deep. In other words, right? I can share an idea that I came up with, something that I think I'm going to try to have AI do in my classroom. I thought maybe that I could have students input their own writing and to get some feedback on their writing other than a teacher's pair of eyes, other than a peer review, and have the students use that then to improve the feedback that they provide to improve the writing that they're going to give to me. I'm going to try that out actually probably in a couple days. Thank you for that.
My son's an 11th grader, and his ELA teacher, besides giving them the opportunity to sometimes pair with AI to generate ideas that they then have to, like we said, turn in. They have to do that in my son's school too. They read Canterbury Tales and they had AI generate images to go along with the character that they were assigned for the story. And then they had to input, he had the knight and he had to input the part of the story where it describes the knight. And then the AI generated the knight. And then he had to write an analysis paragraph of how it compared to what the AI generated the image as compared to what was in the text. It was a pretty cool assignment. Again, he's in 11th grade, but I thought you said you were a high school ELA teacher. So it was an interesting assignment.
Yeah, that is interesting. Thanks for sharing. I don't teach a lot. I do teach high school. I'm in 9th grade. I can already envision doing a similar assignment. We do Romeo and Juliet. It's another kind of hard to access text that, at least for some students, when we're doing Shakespeare stuff. Again, it's another great idea. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you for watching the best of this week's Ed Talk. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. To stay up to date about future Ed Talks and other presentations and workshops, be sure to follow us on social media. Links are in the description. To be part of future Ed Talks, please consider joining our PLC. It's as easy as visiting edvative.com and signing up for our weekly newsletter. From there, you'll have access to our educator community that shares best practices, brainstorms solutions to common challenges, and is passionate about building upon each other's ideas. You'll also have numerous opportunities for professional growth. From webinars to workshops to networking events, we'll keep you abreast of all the latest trends and give you the skills to implement them effectively. Again, thank you for watching. And remember, the hardest part about change isn't adopting a new mindset, it's letting go of the old one.